Most people think power in movies comes from a big weapon, a loud voice, or a giant iron throne. But top filmmakers know a secret. True power doesn't come from the script. It comes entirely from where you place the camera. Today, we are going to break down 5 invisible directing and writing tricks that HBO used to play with your mind in House of the Dragon Season 3. These are hidden rules that separate amateur videos from award-winning TV. Once you see how they actually did it, you will never watch a movie the same way again. So hey everybody, I am Ritika Dua. Welcome to Anigramix. Look, if you are here for a quick story recap or a deep dive into Targaryen history, this isn't the right video for you. We don't just explain the plot, we decode the grammar of animation in cinema. We reverse engineer the world's best TV shows to show you exactly how they are made. Today, we are looking at episode 4, 6 and 7 to see how top directors actually show the mental cost of war. You'll see how silence is used to humiliate a great warrior and how breaking a character completely is the only way to make them a legend. Let's get started. Let me ask you something. How do you make a villain look absolutely terrifying without giving him a sword, armor, or even clothes? A lot of beginners make a huge mistake here. They think a character needs to be shouting and heavily armed to look powerful. But smart directors know that true psychological dominance actually comes from physical vulnerability and complete stillness. Take episode 4 for example. The Hightower army has just taken over the town of Templeton. Lady Footly is super angry and goes to confront the invading commander, Lord Ormond Hightower, in her own castle. Now, you would expect the director to show Ormond in heavy armor or on a big war horse to look scary, but they do something completely unexpected. The director puts the conquering commander in a bathtub, fully naked. Lady Footly is standing there, fully clothed, trying to show her moral and political authority. But Ormond doesn't even stand up at first. He just sits there in the water, totally exposed and relaxed. And when he finally does stand up, his nudity is not shown as a weakness. It is used as a weapon. The scene tells your brain that Ormond feels so untouchable in her house that he doesn't even need armor to crush her. This works so well emotionally because the contrast is shocking. Lady Footly is tense, active and defensive, while the guy destroying her world is chilling and unnervingly relaxed. If you are animating or directing a powerful villain, take away their normal cinematic armor, put them in a highly vulnerable physical position and make them sit completely still. Let the hero do all the moving. The person who is the most relaxed in a dangerous room is always the one in charge. But what happens when a character who is obsessed with armor and glory finally dies? That brings us to our second trick. But if I told you the most brutal death in season 3 was not caused by a sword, but by the editing room. See, modern movies have trained us to expect that a main character's death needs an epic slow motion shot and loud emotional background music. But in episode 3, the makers completely flipped this rule to strip away characters of all his dignity. Let's talk about the death of Sir Criston Cole. His whole life is built around war. He hides his emotional trauma by fighting, and he deeply wants a legendary, honorable knight's death, a glorious final battle. At first, the visual language tricks us into thinking he will actually get it. The camera drops low. We get these tight close-ups of Cole looking heroic and ready. The camera angles are subconsciously promising the audience that an epic boss fight is about to happen. Then, the director and editor pull a massive bait and switch. They completely deny him that duel. Right at the peak moment of tension, they suddenly cut to a cold, distant, wide shot as he is executed like it's nothing. But the real genius here is the audio. The sound designers create a sonic vacuum. They completely cut out the epic battle music. All you hear is some muffled background noise or just dead silence. This makes you feel deeply unsettled. By taking away the expected movie magic, Criston Cole isn't killed like a legend. He is exterminated from a distance like a pest. To completely humiliate a character in your own projects, build up their expectations. Give them the heroic low angles and tight framing. Then, at the exact second, they lose. Brutally cut that cinematic connection, switch to a static, silent, wide shot, denying the audience what they expect is a powerful tool. After denying expectations is exactly how HBO solved the biggest problem with massive fantasy battles. Have you ever noticed that giant movie battles with thousands of soldiers often feel totally boring and emotionally flat? Epic fantasy shows lose their emotional hook because they rely way too much on flying drone shots of massive armies. When you look at a war from a mile up in the sky, it just looks like a video game. But professional directors know how to connect a massive war to a small human feeling. Look at the opening of episode 4. During the occupation of Tumbleton, instead of starting with a sweeping drone shot of 15,000 soldiers marching into the city, the camera starts low in the tall grass. We are looking at a small broken rabbit standing on its back legs. We see a quiet river and a peaceful town. It is a perfectly normal, quiet ecosystem. Only then does the massive threat arrive. Soldiers start violently banging on doors and invading small houses. But notice the camera. It doesn't fly up into the sky to show us the whole army. It stays right at the eye level with the normal people. We are trapped in a claustrophobic, scary nightmare with them. We don't care about a map full of army icons. We care about human scale horror. By keeping the camera on the ground, the massive scale of the invading army feels like it is physically breaking the frame from the outside in. When you are storyboarding a massive invasion, never start with the invading force. Start with a small element of peace, a small animal, a daily core, a quiet room. Then let the massive threat violently interrupt that small space. Keep your camera locked at the victim's eye level, and your audience will actually feel the terror. The physical feeling of being trapped doesn't just happen on a battlefield. In fact, the most suffocating traps in the show happen inside the safest rooms. But what happens when a character loses absolutely everything? Not just their room, but their crown, their beauty, and their entire identity. This brings us to the ultimate storytelling lesson. How do you make an audience root for a terrible, spoiled character? Most writers give them a generic, boring redemption arc where they magically become a good person. But light writers use a mind-blowing technique we call the Anigramix Kintsugi protocol. Look at King Aegon Targaryen's journey this season. He starts as privileged, arrogant boy with a golden dragon. But after the battle, he is completely shattered. In episode 1, we find the king of Westeros hiding in a wooden cart covered in raven shit. He is horribly burned and in constant pain. By episode 3, he is literally shoveling human waste in the latrines of Rock's Rest to survive. The writers brutally strip away his royal oath and humiliate him to let his ego die completely. But here is where the absolute magic happens. The writers don't fix him. They apply the philosophy of Kintsugi. Kintsugi is the Japanese art of repairing broken pottery with liquid gold. You don't hide the cracks, you highlight them. You make the scars the most beautiful part. In episode 7, we get a completely paisa vasool climax. Aegon is cornered by the Mutan army. He is broken, but his so-called Zid, his stubborn survival instinct, refuses to let him run anymore. He prepares to die. But then his dragon Sunfire appears from the woods. Sunfire didn't die. He is just crippled and burned as Aegon. The dragon acts as the goal holding Aegon's broken pieces together. They perfectly mirror each other's trauma. The audience roots for Aegon here, not because he suddenly found good morals, but because he survived the absolute bottom. His scars become his armor. If you want to write an unforgettable anti-hero, don't give them a moral apology. Strip away all their privilege, completely break their ego in the dirt, and then give them a mirror, like a loyal animal or an object that shares their trauma. Make their brokenness their biggest weapon. Let's do a quick recap of the filmmaking rules we decoded today. First, vulnerability is intimidating. Sit still to show dominance. Second, the anticlimax is brutal. Deny the heroic camera angles to turn a death into a clinical execution. Third, start epic scale at the micro level to make invasion terrifying. And finally, use the Kintsugi protocol to make an audience love an unlikable character, shatter their privilege, humiliate them, and let them rebuild their identity using only their scars and survival instinct. Great filmmakers don't just point a camera at an action, they design the emotions of the frame. The massive success of these episodes proves that the most expensive visual effects in the world mean absolutely nothing without perspective, tension, and consequence. Thank you for watching Anigramix. If you want to master the true grammar of cinema, hit subscribe, and I will see you in the next masterclass. Bye bye.